Hello, my name is Cara Mason and I'm a vaginismus psychotherapist and coach and creator of the Vaginismus Free program. I'm delighted to have you join me today. Thank you so much for being here, and you're going to be learning loads of great information about vaginismus. This webinar is all about how to overcome sexual anxiety and pain in the fastest, most powerful way. And I want this to be the ultimate guide to overcoming vaginismus. So by the end of our time together, my aim for you is that you will feel uplifted, reassured, and know that you're not alone when it comes to vaginismus. I know how incredibly isolating having vaginismus can feel. I want you to have a completely new and refreshing perspective on vaginismus. You're going to hear things about vaginismus probably that you've never heard before, and I think things that are really going to help you to feel better about being able to overcome it. You're also going to understand what's causing your vaginismus, because unfortunately there is so much misunderstanding and misinformation about the symptom out there. So we're going to be doing some myth busting of some nonsense that's just not true about vaginismus and correcting those things. And you're going to understand what it really takes in order to beat vaginismus. And I'm going to break down the very specific things that you need to know and you need to do in order to make this happen. And the aim is also that you will believe that you can overcome it too. It's not just for other women, because it's so easy to believe that your vaginismus is harder to resolve, it's deeper rooted than other women's. And I promise you that that really isn't the case when you have more of an understanding about what's actually going on to cause it and what it takes to resolve it. So I want you to feel seen and understood and feel optimistic and empowered that you can overcome this too. And I'm going to sound really bossy here, and I do apologise in advance, and this is coming from me, probably the most distractible person in the world, but I would love for you just to really focus upon the information, because it could make such a massive difference to your life and to your future. So if you can, please mute your phone, close down any windows on your computer, and if you've got other people around you, if you can just let them know that you'd like to be left in peace. I'm not entirely sure how long this is going to go on for, so possibly about 45 minutes. So when I've done videos in the past, the feedback that I get from the women who watch it is that they love hearing about other women's stories because they're so relatable and they give them hope. So throughout this masterclass, you're going to be hearing from lots of other women in terms of how they felt when they had vaginismus and what they did in order to overcome it. Now, when I first get contacted by women seeking help with vaginismus, they tend to be any one of a number of very predictable stages. So what I'm going to show you next is what those stages are, and you'll hear it from the horse's mouth. So I got direct quotes from women, and hopefully you're going to be able to identify with at least more than one of these stages. Now, I've identified 5 different typical stages that women may be at. So the first one is that you just feel quite unfamiliar with your body. So that's very typical with the vaginismus, and that it can become, your vagina can become this sort of no-go zone. You become quite alienated from it. So just to give you an example of somebody else who felt like that is Pretty. Who said, I didn't know my body at all, I wasn't even able to locate my hole, and I was so scared of the pain. I know it's hard to speak about and how embarrassing it is. Another stage that you may well be at is that you might have just been avoiding thinking about your body, penetration, vaginismus for a long time, and I know how easy it can be to sweep it under the carpet because it just feels so overwhelming and you don't even know where to begin. So this quote is from Katie. She said, when I was 18, I realised that things weren't quite right when attempting sex with my boyfriend. I worked myself into utter anxiety and misery, going through phases of negatively obsessing over this regularly, then blocking it out and ignoring it for long periods of time. It might be that your wedding night was a huge disappointment, particularly if you've got of a religious background and you waited until your wedding night to try and have sex. And it could also be that you just find yourself hitting that very frustrating wall where you just feel like you can't insert anything. So Layla says our wedding night was as bad as it possibly could have been, and our honeymoon wasn't much better. Sex wasn't physically possible. I experienced extreme pain and then a brick wall. A couple of years later, still no sex at all. I had my first smear test and exactly the same experience. Or it could be that you just feel worn out and disillusioned from trying lots of different treatments that haven't worked. And the problem is the more treatments that you try that eventually fail, the more disillusioned you become and the more you believe, wow, I'm never going to overcome this. And it's not that you can't, but you do have to treat vaginismus in the correct way. And Olivia here says, I was diagnosed with vaginismus about 4 years ago and tried many different programs to try and overcome it. Kegels, yoga, relaxation methods and dilators, yet nothing had worked. I thought I had an incredibly complex issue that could only be treated with Botox. Or do you feel guilty in your relationship that you're letting your partner down and you compare yourself unfavourably to your friends? Because it's really easy to make that comparison with your peer group, you know, when they're talking about their sex life or when they fall pregnant. So Alison said, I felt anxious, stressed and guilty that I couldn't experience with my husband what I was seeing my friends achieve so easily with their partners. And the belief that I wasn't normal was overwhelming. So what I'm going to do next is just help you to understand why you may have struggled to beat vaginismus, because as I mentioned, if you tried in the past to overcome it and it hasn't worked, it's not necessarily that you're doing things wrong, but there might be other factors at play. So it might be that you think your body is abnormal, and most of the women who do my program hold that belief at the start of it. It might be that you've just had some really unhelpful or incorrect information and advice about vaginismus and what's causing it and what it takes to overcome it. And it might be that because you haven't been able to face dealing with it, you've avoided it because maybe you're expecting failure or it just seems so insurmountable, you've just brushed it under the carpet. And again, if you brush something under the carpet, you can't resolve it. Or it could just be that you've had ineffective treatments in the past that haven't properly addressed the symptom, which is why you're still left with it. But stick with me throughout this masterclass and you are going to learn some really useful, sensible and correct information all about vaginismus. You're in the right place if you've just had enough of suffering with vaginismus. I know how frustrating and how desperate women can feel with this condition. It could be that you'd love to overcome it, but you just have no idea how to do that. And you're also just frustrated with trying other interventions that just don't work. And what this webinar will do is just give you some insight into why they don't work and that it's not your fault. It's not necessarily that you're doing anything wrong, but just the methods that you've been trying don't properly resolve it in the correct way. Now, you are in the wrong place and I'm not going to be able to help you if you can't or won't put in some effort for an incredible reward. And I do understand that sometimes in life you're so incredibly busy, but I'm not going to pretend that overcoming vaginismus is something that's going to happen by magic or overnight. So it is something you're going to have to commit some time and effort to. It's also not going to be a quick fix. I do promise you, if there was a quick fix out there, I would be doing it. And if you're looking for somebody else to do this for you, because it is your vagina and the only person who can control what your vagina does is you. Now, what you don't need is you don't need to have any specialist knowledge about your mind or about your body. And you also don't need to have any previous penetration experience. And you also don't need to have a partner. So if you are somebody who's single, what you're about to learn is still going to apply to you, because you can overcome vaginismus without having a partner there, just with the use of dilators in terms of getting you to feel powerful and in control of your body. And why I do this. So I'm absolutely passionate about helping women to overcome vaginismus. It drives me up the wall when I hear women tell me about other interventions that they've tried, where they've just been given really poor advice. There is a right way and a wrong way to overcome vaginismus, and I'd like to show you the right way to do it, because I do understand the psychological, the emotional, and the physical aspects of vaginismus. I spent years and years talking in very in-depth ways with women with vaginismus, so I really do understand all the obstacles and all the ways that women with vaginismus do think. So a little bit about me. There's me in my office. So I'm based in Buckinghamshire in the UK. I'm married to Simon and have 2 grown-up stepchildren. So I started out by doing a psychology degree, and I've been a psychotherapist since the year 2000, which does age me somewhat. And for the past few years, I've been something called a Thrive program coach, which is like a mental health coach. But what I've been doing is specialising in helping women with vaginismus. Over the past few years, really all my client base has been women with vaginismus. And over the years, I've helped thousands of women. And I also mentor other coaches to help women with vaginismus. And in here and now, I work full-time running the Vaginismus program, and I also still do deal very closely working with women with vaginismus. So the women that I help, you are almost certainly going to fit into one of the following categories, are women who feel too anxious or too uncomfortable to try insertion. It might be that you are somebody who's plateaued. It might be stuck on a particular dilator and you just can't progress. And it might be that actually you've done really well with the dilators, but you just can't make that transition to actually having sex. Or it might be that you can have sex, but you just find it very painful. So it doesn't matter which stage you're at, because it's all the same kind of thinking and responses that cause vaginismus, regardless of where you're currently at. And overcoming vaginismus is absolutely life-changing. I'm just going to give you a few quotes from some women that I've worked with in the past. And we have Annabelle here. Well, when I say we have her here, we've got a stock photo because obviously this is quite confidential. But Annabelle is somebody who took her a year to get in contact with me to build up the courage to do the program. And before she did it, she said, I thought I was strange and weak for not being able to do things that other women could do with ease. The idea of even looking at my vagina made me feel physically unwell. When she overcame vaginismus, she said, the breakthrough moments have felt amazing. Inserting my finger, a tampon, the dilators, and most importantly, having sex with my husband. And the last time I heard from Annabelle was after she'd given birth to her first son, and she sent me a card in the post, which was amazing. And this is Sarah. So Sarah said, I must have seen 20 experts and been to 8 sexual health clinics, counsellors' offices and hospitals. I had an unnecessary examination under general anaesthesia, hours of unneeded counselling, multiple gynecology examinations. Despite all these efforts, there was no progress. And the reason I've chosen Sarah here is because that's such a typical case for so many women that I work with. But even for somebody like Sarah, she says, my vaginismus is cured. This is a sentence I didn't think I would ever be able to say. And actually, lots of doctors and GPs do this program, and here we've got Dr. Fiona. Now, actually, I've chosen Dr. Fiona's quote because she's a sexual health doctor, so was more than comfortable with helping other women and looking into other women's vaginas. But when it came to her own, there was a real disconnection. And she says, I'm a medical doctor and I thought I knew everything about vaginismus. I tried other interventions before, none of which had much impact other than to make me feel more desperately sad when they didn't work. After, she says, I've gained so much personal insight. It really is quite amazing. I am having, dare I say it, good sex, not just penetration, and I will be eternally grateful. So part of the reason that I love working with women with vaginismus is because when they overcome it, it's so absolutely life-changing. So in so many ways, first of all, the particular personal gains that women experience when they overcome it is they feel normal. So for so many women with vaginismus, you don't feel normal, you feel broken, and I absolutely promise you that you're not. And also you feel womanly. You feel free from the burdens. I know what that burden is like when it's hanging over your head that you just can't have sex. And of course, you're able to enjoy sexual pleasure. There's no longer that association with sexual activity that it's going to hurt. There's not that negative association anymore. And also you're able to use tampons, which makes having periods so much easier, and also have an internal examination if that's what you choose. In terms of your relationship, if you are in a relationship, huge gains there in that you feel equal and you feel secure. So very often women don't feel equal, and because of that they can often overcompensate in their relationship, trying so hard in other areas because they feel they're letting down their partner in the bedroom. Obviously be able to enjoy intimacy with your partner. And if you are single, just feeling excited to date, looking forward to the future and looking forward to meeting somebody. And a massive one for some women, be able to have a baby. And in terms of the social gains from overcoming vaginismus, these are huge too. So if you are somebody who feels the pressure from your family, especially if you're in a relationship and you're getting asked questions like, oh, so when are you going to have a baby? It's just lovely to not have to feel that pressure. And there's no secrets as well for so many women with vaginismus. Even their best friends don't know, and even close family members or their mother doesn't know. So it's lovely just to not have that secret. And also there's no need to make comparisons when you have vaginismus. It's so easy to compare yourself maybe to your peer group, especially when they talk about their sex life or if they have a baby. And just that sort of gut-wrenching feeling of I can't do this. So just lovely to be able to not compare yourself to other people. Now, something that's important for me to mention is I'd absolutely recommend that you obtain a formal diagnosis from your doctor of vaginismus if you can. Now, I totally get that for a lot of women, they feel awkward and uncomfortable at the thought of doing that, especially if you're imagining, oh God, are they going to examine me? But just in terms of being able to rule out anything physical, even something quite minor like thrush, is quite important to do. So yeah, if you can, do obtain a medical diagnosis. So I'd like to tell you why there couldn't be a better time to finally resolve your vaginismus. So it's so easy to brush it under the carpet, and for most women who contact me, they've already had it for probably even a number of years before they finally get in touch. And it's so easy to put off because you think that overcoming it is going to be difficult. Or it might be that women only seek help once their relationship has ended, and then they think to themselves, well, I really need to do something about this now. Or it might be that it's a woman in her 30s just worrying if she can fall pregnant and then feeling that panickiness of more time's ticking by. And one of the things that my clients often say to me is, I'd wish I'd done this years ago, when they finally find out that actually it's not difficult to resolve. Because Vaginismus has a huge impact upon most women's mental health and happiness, and when you finally overcome it, it's such a massive change. It's so utterly life-changing because vaginismus is not difficult to resolve when you do it the right way. Okay, so now we're going to get to the nitty-gritty of vaginismus. So we're going to talk all things vaginismus, what's causing it, what the symptoms are. We're going to do a bit of myth busting as well, so some things about vaginismus that just aren't true. And what you're about to hear, some of it might be controversial, some of it might be information you're hearing for the very first time, but it's all essential knowledge that I want you to have. So first of all, we'll just start with the basics. So what is vaginismus? So vaginismus results from a tensing of the vaginal muscles, making penetration painful or impossible. And when I say penetration, that could be trying to have sex or trying to insert a tampon or have an examination. But it could also be just the anticipation of pain that causes that avoidance and not wanting to try. The ingredients of vaginismus, whether sex is painful or whether you would just really rather do anything else, is caused by the same sort of thinking and the same sort of beliefs. Symptoms of vaginismus, so tightness of the vaginal muscles, which cause a burning or a stinging pain when you try to insert something. You might also experience like a wall inside your vagina preventing penetration, which is incredibly frustrating because you try to insert anything and it's just not going inside. Avoidance of penetration due to anxiety or fear, and feeling alienated or disconnected from your vagina. So one of the very first things that I do when I start working with women is just gently get them to start connecting with their vagina in the gentlest of ways, just by even looking at their body in a mirror. Also, feelings of squeamishness or disgust about your vagina or sexual activity. So this isn't going to be the case for everybody. Some women experience this and others don't, so that one can vary. Sorry, I've got my head in the way there. But what are the muscles involved in vaginismus? So these are your pelvic floor muscles, and it's the same muscles that are involved when you go to the toilet. So whether that's having a wee or a poo, it's exactly those same muscles. And just as you're watching this video now, as you're sat there, hopefully feeling quite relaxed, your vaginal muscles should also be relaxed. So what I'd like you to do is just imagine that feeling of when you're doing a wee, and imagine you're squeezing your muscles to stop the flow of urine. So as you're squeezing those now, that's exactly those same muscles that cause vaginismus. And for so many of the women that I work with, when they first come to see me, or when they first start the program, they find it really hard to believe that they can overcome vaginismus. And I want to show you why this might be the case, because you'll probably relate to most of what I'm about to show you. So it could be that you've had previous treatments for vaginismus that have failed, that have left you feeling disillusioned and believing, well, my vaginismus must be really quite difficult to resolve. I do promise you that what I do in the program is completely different to other interventions. It could also be that you've just had it for such a long time now that it feels just so embedded in the way that you think it's become part of your identity, so you can't even imagine things being any different. You believe that you're physically abnormal, so not every woman with vaginismus believes this, but certainly most do. And most of the women who start my program have that belief. And of course, if you believe you're physically abnormal, then no wonder that you're going to put off finding a solution to vaginismus, because it's just going to sound like it's so much harder to do because there's something wrong with you. And I promise you, if you have vaginismus, there is nothing structurally wrong with your vagina. It's just overreactive to penetration. So it might be difficult for you to believe that you can overcome vaginismus just because you doubt yourself and you doubt your ability to be successful at this. And there's lots of women that I see when they first start the program, because they're such perfectionists, they like to give 100% into things that they do. And if they can't do that, then they feel like, well, I'm not going to do that at all. So it could just be that you doubt yourself. And it could be that you don't understand what's causing it. And I have to say that's pretty much everybody. Even medical professionals don't really understand the intricacies of what's causing vaginismus. And if you don't understand it, it's difficult to get your head around what might be required in order to resolve it. And that's why in my program, I teach you everything that you need to know to understand what's going on behind the scenes that's causing that physical response. Now let's do a little bit of myth busting about vaginismus, because there are so many myths and misconceptions out there about vaginismus that might be preventing you from seeking help. So let's knock some of those on the head. So myth busting number 1, your vaginal muscles are spasming. I promise you they're not spasming, because when you think of something spasming in your body, it feels like it's this very medicalized, out of control response. Whereas the reality is your muscles are simply tensing. So if this is your vaginal muscles, they're just squeezing together to prevent penetration. And it is as simple as that. And the definition of muscular spasm has actually been removed from the DSM, which is kind of the medical Bible that medical professionals use. So there's no evidence that spasming is occurring. It's much simpler than that. Okay, so myth number 2, that vaginismus is an unconscious response. Okay, so of course, when vaginismus happens, you don't want it to happen. You're not trying to make it happen, but when people describe something as unconscious, what they're actually saying is it's just happening out of the blue. I've got no control over this. And the reality is that you can make what your muscles do a conscious and controllable thing. So with knowledge and insight, you can learn to understand how to control your body and feel powerful over your body. So it doesn't just feel as though vaginismus is this thing that's just happening to you. I promise you it isn't. So myth busting number 3 is that the purpose of dilators is to stretch your vagina, and lots of women believe this. Now the reality is that your vagina itself, your vaginal canal, and the tissue and the skin inside it is perfectly malleable, elastic as it is. It doesn't need stretching. But what dilators actually do is they teach you how to gain confidence and control over your vaginal muscles. So there's nothing physically, structurally wrong with your vagina. You're just training the muscles. And number 4 is that vaginismus is caused by some sort of trauma. It could be a general trauma, or it could be a sexual trauma. Now this is a little bit controversial, and all I can say is from the hundreds of women that I've worked with over the years, it's quite rare that that's the case. Okay, it will be in some cases, and I'm really sorry if that is the case for you. But you can develop anxieties and symptoms and fears without having a preceding event. So for example, in this country, there's millions of people with a fear of flying, not because they've been in some sort of horrible aircraft emergency, but because of their thoughts about the plane crashing. They've created this fear, and it's got bigger and bigger every time they've thought about flying. And the same for vaginismus. So you can become disconnected from your vagina, you can become quite fearful about the pain, and with the power of your mind, that fear and that anxiety can escalate. And then number 5, it's hard to overcome vaginismus. Well, that's kind of right and wrong. It's hard to overcome vaginismus if you're approaching it in the wrong way, which is why for so many women, they might have battled with their dilators for years, in which case, yes, it is difficult, but it's not when you use the correct approach. And the correct approach is one that empowers you to really understand your mind and your body and take good control over your muscles. So speaking of dilators, are you doing your dilator exercises wrong? Because there is a right and a wrong way to do them. So I'm just going to list you some of the common errors that women make when they are using their dilators, and particularly this is going to be the case for you if you're feeling really frustrated or you feel like you've plateaued. So for example, creating a lot of anticipatory anxiety before a penetration attempt. So if you're sat on the bed just nervously looking at your dilator and thinking, I really don't want to do this, all the while that time's ticking by, you're building up more and more anxiety about it. Also, just rushing through penetration exercises to get them over and done with probably means that you're not going to be left with a very good feeling after it, which is going to also have an impact upon how you feel about the next time you do it. So almost the results are cumulative, and you can keep building up anxiety by just trying to get it over and done with as quickly as possible. And being too tentative. So dilators do need a bit of a push in. They're not going to just fall inside. And if you're being too tentative because you are anticipating pain, you might not be giving the push in that it does actually need. But not that I'm suggesting that you try to push in a dilator if it's painful. At that point, you want to stop and pause and try and calm yourself down. Now, this is a massive one. The things that we tell ourselves have a huge impact upon how we feel and also how our body responds. So as you're preparing to do a penetration exercise, or if that dilator is actually inside you, telling yourself something negative like you can't do it, or I just want to get this out of me, it's going to have a negative impact upon how you feel about that exercise and how you feel about penetration generally. And then finally, just any technical issues. So for example, you want to make sure that you are inserting the dilator, for example, in the correct angle. But what I would say is women who feel more powerful and in control of their bodies can get things, they can maybe not insert just the right angle that they need to, but as long as their vaginal muscles are fairly relaxed, it will find its way in. And that's why the thoughts that we have and the things that we tell ourselves are so important in terms of creating that success. Which leads me on to this picture here. So you've got this girl who's looking very disappointedly at some cookies she's tried to bake, but she hasn't turned the oven on. So trying to insert something into an unwilling vagina is like trying to bake in a cold oven. It's not going to happen. So you have to prepare your mind, prepare yourself mentally in order to successfully insert something into your vagina. So the 3 keys to fully overcoming vaginismus. So I do promise you, if you do these 3 things, you will overcome vaginismus. If you build a connection with your body, okay, because for so many women, vaginismus is about that disconnect and that alienation from their body. 2, learn how your mind and your body interact, that mind-body connection. And number 3, develop what's called your sense of power and control over how your body responds. When you feel powerful and when you feel in control, you're going to feel much more enthusiastic, for example, about doing your penetration exercises. So do those 3 things and you will predictably overcome vaginismus. So my big promise to you is that if you follow the steps that I show you in my program, you can learn to feel fully in control of your body. Okay, so now we're going to come on to some really important information. So what really causes vaginismus? And it's so important to understand this because knowledge is power. In order to properly overcome vaginismus, it's important to know what's driving it and also, more importantly, what it takes to overcome it. So curing vaginismus is about so much more than just inserting a dilator at the correct angle, because I don't want women to spend another minute doing penetration exercises wrong, because you can go online and you can find out information about, say, the correct angle to insert a dilator, but there's much more to curing vaginismus than just about the physical, technical technique. And I want you to know that vaginismus doesn't just happen to you. And I know that that's the way it feels. It feels like this unconscious, involuntary response that you've got no control over. But the reality is it's not just as simple as a cause and effect response, in terms of the cause being you're trying to insert something and the effect is your vaginal muscles are tensing up. Okay, there's much more going on behind the scenes. So just to help me explain this, I'm going to give you a few everyday examples of physical responses that we can experience. So what we've got here is this poor girl is feeling very embarrassed about something. So the physical response
is that she is blushing. Now, that's not happening out of the blue. You know, we don't blush when we're just quietly sat down on our sofas watching Netflix. We blush in response to feeling embarrassed. So there's certain thoughts that we are creating that's causing that physical response. So at the very heart of it, it's coming from our mindset. So the physical response of blushing is the last thing that's happening. That's the end result. And to give you another example, so for anybody who is a bit afraid of flying, here we've got this woman here who's an anxious flyer, and she sat there in the chair feeling nervous. So the physical response that she is feeling is that probably her heart is racing. She's probably gripping the armrest, so she's squeezing her muscles tight around it. But again, that's not just happening out of the blue, because there's plenty of people who might be sat near her who are just, quite happily looking forward to their holiday. They're reading their books. So there's something in particular that she is doing to feel that way. And what she's doing is she's creating anxious thoughts. She's thinking, oh my God, the plane's going to crash. So again, it's her mindset that is producing that very physical response. So now we're going to look at some penetration examples. So in this case, we've got a picture of a dilator. I didn't want to put a penis there. So that dilator is just not going anywhere. So the physical response when you have vaginismus is experiencing pain, hitting that wall, or it might be just complete avoidance and that I just don't even want to do this in the first place. That's not happening out of the blue, okay? That's being caused by our mindset. And the mindset in particular of every woman with vaginismus is feeling perhaps all three of these components, or it might just be one or two of them, but certainly feeling anxiety, feeling fear of pain, fear of disappointment. Or if it's not as extreme as that, it might just be feeling the pressure of, I really hope this works this time, or feeling the pressure from, I want to please my partner, I don't want to let him down. And now I'm going to show you a much more positive image now. So this represents successful penetration. So if the physical response is you having relaxed vaginal muscles and experiencing comfortable penetration, again, that's not just coming out of the blue. That's being caused, again, by your mindset being in the right place. Your beliefs, your thoughts are optimized to create this physical response. So in particular, the mindset that you want to have in order to enjoy successful penetration is ultimately feeling powerful and in control of your body and your body's response to penetration. And also having good knowledge about your mind and about how your body responds. So good knowledge and good insight. And this also explains why, if ever you've been told to just relax or just have a glass of wine, this is why it doesn't work, because just trying to think positively about something is really hard to do unless you feel powerful and in control in that situation. So at the heart of what it takes to properly overcome vaginismus is feeling powerful and in control and having good knowledge, a good self-insight. And unfortunately, they should be teaching these skills to everybody, regardless of the situation. But certainly when we end up with vaginismus, it's no wonder, because we're not taught to have these skills. And these are exactly the things that you would learn on my programme. Now, something that I hear quite a lot from ladies before they start the programme is they'll say, but Cara, I don't feel anxious or scared when I'm using my dilator or if I'm trying to have sex. Now, the reality is that we don't see our thoughts. Okay, our thoughts aren't tangible things like our vaginas are. So because we don't see our thoughts, we can get used to thinking in the same old ways. Our thoughts become normalised, so we don't pay attention to them. But it's not to say that they don't have a huge impact upon what our body's doing. And that's why self-awareness is so crucial in overcoming vaginismus. Just having that insight and that awareness to know what's going on behind the scenes that's causing that physical response. And I do promise you that it can absolutely be learned. These are all skills that you can learn easily.
And if you're still feeling a little bit hesitant about taking action, as most women are, that's okay. But I want you to know that I can help you even if you've had vaginismus for a long time, and there's plenty of women who do my program who've had it for 20, 30 years plus. If you feel that your symptoms are very severe, if you find it hard to believe that you can beat this, as most women do, and if you've tried other treatments that haven't worked, my program is completely different to everything else that's out there. Now, I'm going to keep this short and sweet, but I'm going to give you some very basic details about the Vaginismus Free program. So at a glance, it's a step-by-step, easy to follow program that you can do from the comfort of your own home, wherever you are in the world. And I've basically taken all my 25 years of experience of vaginismus and condensed it down into this program. And you can achieve successful penetration in just 8 to 10 weeks. And there are choices. So you can either work independently through the program in self-paced study, or if you want some extra guidance, you can have one-to-one coaching support. And the program is evidence-based with proven results from thousands of women. And I've tried to make the program as affordable as possible so that it's accessible for all women. So I do offer easy pay installments. And the program is utterly life-changing. So this is so much more than just you working on your vaginal muscles. This is about teaching you how to feel in control, how to learn to thrive in the bedroom and outside of it too. And in a moment, I'll tell you exactly how you can find out more about the program. That's it. You've reached the end of the masterclass, and I know there was a lot of information to take on board, but I really hope that what you've learned has helped to change your perspective about vaginismus and also helped you to believe that you can overcome this too. Now, if you are somebody who is very keen to overcome vaginismus, I would be delighted to meet you for a free initial Zoom consultation for about half an hour. It's all confidential. It's very laid back, and we would just meet. I can find out more about you, I can answer any questions that you have, and also explain about how the Vaginismus Free program works. And if you feel a little bit funny about talking about vaginismus, please be reassured that I talk about vaginas day in, day out. So it is dead easy for me. It's water off a duck's back for me, even though I know it can feel a bit funny on your side of the camera initially. Or if you would prefer to just click on a link that's going to give you all the information about the Vaginismus Free program, you're really welcome to do that too. So if you'd like to book a free consultation or just get more information about the program, it's really easy. All you need to do is type this into your browser, www.vaginismus-treatment/options. And this is what the screen looks like, where you have a couple of options. And if I just scroll down to show you, so here is where you can book in for your free consultation. Or if you are feeling a bit shy, or you feel like you don't need a consultation and you just want details sent to you, this is where you select that option. That's it from me, and if you've come this far, it means that you would really like to overcome this, and I really do hope that you will take the next step. Thanks again for watching.